Okay, we have a 2004 Audi A4 1.8 liter turbo, and this thing has a check engine light on and throwing some secondary air injection codes. The secondary air injection system in these cars is pretty simple. It only consists of a couple of parts. As I said before, you have a relay for the secondary air injection pump and ECU box. Also, you have a fuse in there. It's a 40 amp fuse for the secondary air pump. You have a secondary air injection solenoid down there under the intake manifold. One of them is secondary air injection, the other one is a overboost protection valve. You have a vacuum line that goes to the solenoid, and from solenoid to the combi valve. Combi valve is that little shiny thing down there between the wires. That's the actual valve that lets the secondary air into the exhaust ports. So you could get several different codes for the system. You could get insufficient flow codes. You could get short to ground, short to plus, but those are electrical codes, so they'll tell you exactly where the problem is. But if you get a code like insufficient flow or a leak, you know, you could check the vacuum line going from the solenoid to the combi valve. You could start the car, take the vacuum line off, activate the system, and see if you get vacuum in there. Or you could put a little vacuum pump on the combi valve and try to vacuum it out, see if it's holding vacuum. Also, there's a pipe down there. See that metal pipe over there? It goes from the combi valve to the pump, goes along the engine, turns down. The pipe is, there's another, like there's a connector over here, but there's another metal pipe. It's bolted onto the turbo, and then it turns into plastic and goes down to the pump. Check that hose and see if it's broken or something like that. But if your pump is activated and it's working, you could clearly hear if it's leaking or not. But first, I prefer always checking the actual components like pump, relay, fuse, all that stuff first before looking into the hoses and stuff like that. So if your pump is activated and it's working, then you should look into the vacuum hoses and delivery hose or the combi valve possibly. Also, if you disconnect the feed line, not the feed line, the pressure line from the pump, the one that goes to the combi valve, and you see any water residue in there, that's usually a sign of bad combi valve. What happens is when you start the car and the car is running and the system is not activated, if the valve is leaking, it will accumulate condensation in the pump, and that usually kills the pump. So if you disconnect the hose from the pump and you see water in there, most likely your combi valve is bad. And if the pump is bad and you see water in there, you have to check the combi valve, because as soon as you put the new pump on, it won't last long. In a couple of weeks it's going to be dead again. So make sure the hoses are dry. Alright, so we turn on the ignition. Let's scan it and see what it says. Yeah, we got a bunch of codes. We got a brake booster vacuum system mechanical failure, secondary air injection system incorrect flow detected. This is the code we're going to be working on. So once you see the code, there are several steps you could take to diagnose the problem. Now go back out. I usually use this output tests. Any normal scanner will have it. You could activate certain things. So you activate this. This is the secondary air injection control solenoid. Just activate it and open the hood and listen if you hear a click, and see what's up. So you press on activating the solenoid. You can listen from under the hood. The solenoid is right under the intake manifold. There's two solenoids in there. One is an overboost protection solenoid. They're located right there, right under the intake. And the other one is a secondary air injection solenoid. Well, you could clearly hear there's ticking, meaning that the electrical part is working. If it's working 100%, we're not sure yet, but we know that the solenoid most likely is working. So you go to the next step. Now you're gonna activate the secondary air pump relay. Alright, here you go. Pressing that, see it starts working. The secondary air pump relay is located right here. This is the ECU box. It's located right next to ECU. We could hear it clicking. Means the relay working as well. So next thing, we'll listen to the pump and see if the pump goes on. The pump is on the passenger side, all the way in the bottom, right under the headlight, like this area, down deep inside. We do not hear the pump running. Means we're on the right track and there's something wrong with the electrical system or the pump itself. And now we exit out of output test screen, stop the test, exit out of the module. So remember, every time you go through that test, in order for you to restart the test, you're gonna have to start the car and shut it off. You will not restart the test if you don't start the car. So now we're gonna stop the test, raise the car up a little bit so we could get to the pump wiring and check the wiring. The car is up on the jack. Gotta raise the right side. We have our Power Probe 3 tester connected. We're gonna check the wiring. Now we go back to our computer, get back to the engine control module, into those output tests, scroll down, oops, we need to restart the car. Always exit out of the module before you turn off ignition. You don't have to let it run for a long time, just a second or two, just to start up. You activate the secondary air pump relay. Now you gotta check the wiring, see if you're getting power to the pump itself. Okay, this is the pump over here. Secondary air pump. Looks like it's been replaced here recently. This is the connector for the pump. You gotta disconnect that. You got a ground and a power wire, and test those too. Now make sure your test is running, because mine just shut off. We gotta restart it, but make sure you hear the fuel pump running. All the time when the test is gonna be running, you're gonna hear the fuel pump buzzing. So yeah, our computer died. Now we got it back online. You might hear the buzzing of the fuel pump in the back. It means the test is running. You gotta check both of the we're using the connector. See, we get ground in this one, which is good. This one's supposed to be plus. So we're not getting any power down to the pump. So that means we check the relay. The relay seemed to be working. It was activated. So we might have a problem with the fuse. Now we're gonna pop the ECU box open and take a look at the fuse. Now you gotta remove the rain guard to get to the ECU cover bolts. Well, we took the bolts out already, but you get 1, 2, 3, 4 you have 5 bolts on the box. You can only see 4. The other bolt is down there. You have to remove the wiper arm to get to the bolt. Show it to you. I can see it. Yep, see that bolt over there? If you don't take that off, you will break the cover and you will have water leaking into your car. You do not want that to happen. So you have 5 bolts on the cover. Make sure they all out before you try to take the cover off. Once again, take the wiper arm off. You're gonna need a long T30 Torx bit and unbolt all the bolts, and then you could pull the cover out. And once again, it's not gonna come out that easy. You gotta play around with it. Don't break anything. Don't break the rain guard, because it will promote the leakage into the car. See that spot over there? This is where the bolt is. Do not break the box. You will have a lot of problems if you break this box. And here's our fuse for the secondary air injection. And as you see, it looks like it's blown. Yep, we got a blown fuse. We gotta replace that and then see what happens. We got a new 40 amp fuse. When you replace fuses, any fuses in your car, never ever use higher amperage fuse than the manual says to put in there, because you will overload the circuit. Well, basically, if the fuse blows, it means something wrong with your circuit, something's shorting out and overloading the circuit. If you put a higher amperage fuse into the fuse holder, you will melt the wiring, and then you're gonna have much more problems than you already have. So we'll put a fuse in there. We're gonna run the test again and see if we get power to the pump. So we're activating the test one more time. After a fuse replacement, we check if we get any power by the pump. Oh, our tester's disconnected. Yeah, make sure your tester is working properly. Alright, here we go. Still got ground. And now we get a pulsating positive. That means the pump circuits are good. Alright, let's try to connect the pump, see what happens. Oh, our test just stopped. We're gonna restart the test again and see if the pump turns on. Alright, we reactivated the test. The pump is not running. Let's disconnect it again. Make sure we still get power to it. Yep, we get power to the pump, but no output. I guess we found that problem. The pump could actually turn on at first, so you gotta let it run. If it turns on and you had a blown fuse, it means that the fuse was overloaded, that's why it blew. So let the pump run a little bit and see if it slows down or makes any weird noise. That could happen. We've actually seen that happen before. When we tested, the pump would turn on at first, and then after several seconds it would just die out and overload the circuit and blow the fuse again. So let the pump run. If the pump runs okay, then you probably have a ripped wire somewhere, or maybe insulation came off and something's shorting it out. That's why the fuse blew. So replace the fuse. Try to see if you find any bad wires. If you don't, replace the fuse and hope for the best. However, in our situation here, we have a bad pump. So now we're gonna replace the pump, and then show you how to run the test. You could activate the test for complete test for the secondary air injection, where it's gonna actually test the whole system, how it's operating. See, our pump is not working, so we started replacing the secondary air pump. Disconnected the hose, and we got water leaking out of the hose. That means that the combi valve probably is bad, and the guys who put the pump in never checked the combi valve. As you see, the pump looks relatively new. So we got two problems on our hand, and replacing the pump alone will not fix the problem. It will postpone it. Basically, you're gonna replace the pump. A couple weeks later, it's gonna fail again because it's accumulating water, and the water going right into the motor and killing the motor. Alright, to replace the pump, there's 3 nuts on the back of the pump. You gotta take them off. 10mm nuts. Make sure you don't get any of the hoses caught on it. And you gotta play around with the pump to gently pull this thing out. Everything is pretty much kind of soft in there, so you could move something out of the way and just play around with it and get the pump out. Alright, we got our pump out. As you see, we have water in there. The water can only get in there from the combi valve. Means that the combi valve is leaking, and it basically accumulated the condensation in the pump when the pump was not running. Unless your intake hose is laying somewhere outside and not connected to the airbox, the water cannot get in there. Here you go. We got the pump out. I'm gonna put a new pump in there, test it again, and well, I'm pretty sure we're gonna still have the secondary air injection sufficient flow, or some sort of codes for the system, because the combi valve is bad. We got our new pump, nice and original. We gotta swap those little rubber mounts over to new pump and stick it back in. So pry them out with a screwdriver. Be careful, don't rip them. They're like $10 each. Take it out. See, there's a slot in there. You stick it in, and it's all good. Now we gotta stick the new pump in. Once again, play around with it. It's not gonna just drop in. You're just gonna squeeze it in somehow. It will go in. There is enough space. Just play around with it. Yeah. You gotta, after installation of new pump, you have to make sure that those hoses that go to the pump dry and do not have any water in it, or you could damage the new pump as well. You gotta clip the hoses back in, just lubricate the ends of them, just a little lube over here on the inside, right here, and clip them back in all the way. Make sure they clipped all the way. You see, somebody repaired this hose with a electrical tape. This is not a good idea. Gotta come up with some better solution than this. Alright, the pump is in. Let's run the test again. See if it turns on. You can hear it turning on, but I can also hear some leakage from this electrical tape connection. That's gotta get fixed. You know, we fixed the hose. Now it sounds much better. Here you go, a good way to check the combi valve. Take the lines off of it. Put just a regular piece of hose on it, on top, on the feed line, and try to blow through it. If it blows through, then your combi valve is bad. And it does blow through. So we know 100% that the combi valve does not close. There you go. Now remove the combi valve and replace it. Once again, if you're gonna leave this combi valve, and you could actually see if you look inside of the inlet pipe, you see that black stuff? The gunk from the exhaust, meaning the exhaust was going the other way. That could only happen if the combi valve is open when the pump is not working. So we know 100% that the combi valve is bad. You gotta remove the 3 bolts that hold down the combi valve to the cylinder head. Be careful, don't injure your hands. There are a lot of sharp things in there. And don't drop the gasket. If you're gonna be reusing the gasket, you should replace the gasket, but if you didn't get a gasket with it, make sure you don't drop it. It's gonna be hard to find it later on. And this guy has a off-cover gasket leaky. Alright, so we finally got our new combi valve over here. Nice and new. Try to blow through it. Doesn't blow through. The old one blows through. So we're gonna put that in. Alright, so we got our bolts, we got a new gasket. Put it on the bracket and put it in. Alright, so we got the bolts in. I like to put them in with the bolts, so you don't have to align anything while it's in there. It's not really a lot of space. So let's put it in. Alright, our valve is in. Now put on the vacuum line back into the fitting. And connect the hoses. Alright, so we put everything together, put all the plastics back, all the vacuum lines and everything. Now we're gonna do the basic settings for secondary air injection. We already did the basic settings for all the L2 sensors. Some cars you're gonna have to do those first before the secondary air injection is gonna go through. You gotta go to engine, then you gotta clear the codes out, go into basic settings, channel number 77, click go. Oh, it already passed through. Well, we had the car running for about 20 minutes and already did the test while I was doing, while it was warming up. So as you see, this is the screen where basic settings are done for secondary air injection. Group number 77. You click go. It will say test off over here. You press test on, let the car idle. The screen is gonna change into test on, and then you're gonna have to wait for system okay or not okay. This part over here, if you see percentage going over like 20-30%, that means you have a problem with secondary air injection. If not, it should be about 12-13%, and as you see, everything's okay now.